Професор Ханке, в България отново ние имаме избори, 7-ми път избори. Кое е умно нещо да направим от икономическа гледна точка, сега по време на тази ситуация?
Well, I think the election coming up again on October 27th, that seems to be all you do in Bulgaria is have elections. And I think what we're witnessing here in Bulgaria, it's a classic case of the god of indirect democracy that's failed. And when I say that indirect democracy, remember, that's what you have in Bulgaria. You elect politicians, and those politicians are supposed to make decisions and act as representatives of the population. The trouble is that Bulgarians do not trust the politicians in Bulgaria. There's no trust and there's no legitimacy. The politicians they're not legitimate. And you can see that because with the election coming up on October 27th, they're projecting that only about 30% of the Bulgarian eligible voters will even vote. So the whole system is broken. And I think Bulgaria needs a constitutional change in which all major decisions about taxing and spending and regulation or changing in the currency, for example, would have to be dealt with direct democracy, where the people of Bulgaria voted in referenda directly, and they eliminated the politicians. The best way to eliminate the politicians who aren't legitimate and get them out to the sideline is to have more direct democracy, more referenda like they do in Switzerland. So that's my general theme. The whole system is broken. It's not legitimate.
Евростат докладва, че България има едни от най-високите цени на недвижимите имоти. Много е важно да ви питам дали това е балон.
No, I don't think it's a balloon at all. Let me remind you that about 3 years ago, I addressed a group of investors in Bulgaria. And what did I recommend that they buy? And what did I say that they should be investing in? I said land and real estate and also gold. And so I'm not surprised that the real estate's gone up. And let me explain why it's gone up. It's also gone up very much in Serbia, Montenegro, and Albania. All three of those countries I know very well because I was an official advisor in the former Socialist Republic of Yugoslavia, as well as a state counselor in Montenegro and a chief economic advisor in Albania. And what happens in those countries, the money supply in the Balkans has gone up with COVID. When COVID hit, the money supply went up. And when the money supply goes up, with a lag, asset prices go up. So it's all about the money supply. Money supply goes up, asset prices go up. And the reason that they've gone up a lot in real estate is that there aren't many assets to invest in the Balkans. It's very limited. The stock markets are not really developed, so most people don't invest in the stock market. There's just nothing to invest in but real estate. So all of the increase comes through real estate, and it's not a bubble. It's just due to the fact that there aren't many things to invest in Bulgaria. Let me go to the United States just to give you an example. In 2020, when the COVID pandemic hit, the money supply shot up in the United States. It went up by actually between March 2020 and December 2021, it went up by 35%, the money supply. So what happened? Iowa land prices, that's the premium agricultural land, they went up by 30%, and real estate in the United States States went up by 44%. So exactly the same thing happened in the United States that happened in Bulgaria. This is not unusual. This is exactly what so that's my conclusion. Money supply goes up, all asset prices go up, but there are limited number of assets to invest in Bulgaria and places like Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, all the Balkans. They don't really have stock markets, big bond markets, things like that. So that people invest in real estate. They pile into real estate. So it's not unusual.
Нашите политици казват, че инфлацията в България е ниска. В същото време цените растат нагоре. Какво се случва? Лъжат ли ни?
Well, we have to put this into context. Number one, Bulgaria has a currency board system. And the currency board system means that de facto, informally, you're part of the Eurozone. So in general, what happens to the inflation rate in Bulgaria is more or less the same as what's going on in the trends in the Eurozone. Because Bulgaria, in fact, is in the Eurozone because of the currency board. So what's happened? Since August of 2023, that's about a year ago, the inflation rate in Bulgaria was 7.7%. The inflation rate in the Eurozone was 5.2%. And then, if we go to August 2024, inflation in Bulgaria has fallen to 2.1%, and in the Eurozone, it's fallen to 2.2%. So the pattern is down. Inflation's going down. And it will go down even more next year because if we look at what's happening to the growth in the money supply in the Eurozone, the money supply is only growing at about 3.2% per year in the Eurozone. And that's below Hanke's golden growth rate of 6%, which is consistent with hitting a 2% inflation target in the Eurozone. So inflation is going to fall to below 2% in the Eurozone, and inflation will keep going down in Bulgaria. So it's going in the right direction, and I know it's going down because what's going on with the money supply today in the Eurozone is low growth, about half the rate that it should be if they wanted to hit the 2% target, means that down, inflation down. So that part is good news. Lower inflation's good.
But the prices are up. This is not the good news. Inflation, you say, is going down, but the prices, is it speculation or what?
The measure of inflation, if you take everything in the basket, all items that are in the basket in Bulgaria, it's year over year. Since the last year, it's grown at 2.1%. Now, some things are going up and some things are going down, but the average, the aggregate is 2.1%. And a year ago, it was 7.7. So the aggregate, it's getting better. Just wait, it will go down.
Maybe the most of Bulgarians will not agree with you, but I will not argue.
Let's face it, the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah, I understand. What is the future with the euro? Because they
right now, the
they
euro,
print a lot of euros.
Right now the euro is very stable against the dollar. The dollar-euro rate is about 1.1, about 110. It's been there for, several years now. I think if the wars in the Middle East get worse, which they might, and depending on what goes on with the war in Ukraine, the euro could get a little bit weaker against the dollar. Because remember, the dollar is king. You can forget all the propaganda that the cryptocurrency people tell you, or the BRICS people, or Russia, all of these things. The dollar is king.
Or China.
And China tells you the same thing about the dollar. Remember my favorite line, buy dollars, wear diamonds.
I understand.
Now let me point out one important thing with regard to the euro and Bulgaria, though. This is a critical point. The politicians in Bulgaria, not the public, but the politicians, they want to get rid of the currency board and get rid of the lev and replace it with the euro. Now, Bulgarian population, they don't want to do this. And I don't think the Europeans actually want to do it either now. And that's one reason they haven't let Bulgaria formally switch from the lev to the euro. But this key point that I want to raise and emphasize about the euro is that the people in Frankfurt want to introduce a digital euro. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, they will have complete control over all the transactions that take place in euros. So that means, Martin, if Bulgaria got rid of the lev and adopted the euro, and they had a digitized euro, and they didn't like, Martin, what you were buying, or let's say they wanted to sanction you because they didn't like your program and your podcast, they could cut you off. They could turn the switch, and that would be the end. You would not be able to spend the euros that you have because the digitized euro would control everything. So it would be worse than the old Soviet type and communist regime that you had in Bulgaria. So this is the key thing that the politicians in Bulgaria are not talking about. When they talk about how wonderful it's going to be with the euro, they are not telling you this because what they're telling you is a lot of primitive propaganda. Everything they're telling you about switching from the left to the euro is primitive propaganda. And they're not telling you about this digitized euro, believe me.
And this will be a big problem for me in my studio. Yeah?
Absolutely.
And what's your advice? That mean I must invest in silver?
Well, as far as investment goes, let me just preface this by saying, at one time I was actually managing a lot of money, a lot of other people's money, as well as my own. And I was actually the president of Toronto Trust Argentina in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1995. And that was the best performing fund in the world. So I have a little experience, and I would say three things. Just what I said 3 years ago in Bulgaria, land. They don't make land anymore. It's a safe investment. Gold. Gold is fine. The last year, gold has increased by 45%. It's hitting all-time highs. It will keep going up. So gold is okay. And also long-term bonds. If inflation is going down and will continue to go down because the money supply is contracting, the yields on bonds go down, but the price of bonds goes up. If the yields go down, the price goes up. So long-term bonds are also a good investment.
Защо храната в България става все по-скъпа, все по-бързо?
This is something interesting going on. If you look at, it's all about supply and demand, by the way. That's why. It's by supply and demand. If the supply and demand is working to raise the price of commodities, they'll raise. If it's working to lower it, they'll go lower. So if you look at the broad price indices, they're actually coming down, going down. But within that, you've got this supply and demand working, and some agricultural products are going up. Actually, in the last year, if you look at the Economist index of food prices, they've gone up by about 11%. And if you look at non-food agriculture, it's gone up by about 15% over the last year. But the overall index of all commodities is only gone up by about 10. So it depends on the commodities and the supply and demand. Some things, by the way, like lithium, have collapsed. They've gone down by about 80% over the last year. So it's all supply and demand.
Mm-hmm. В този момент, казвайки, че у нас има политическа криза, каква е най-голямата опасност за българската икономика?
Well, I think one huge danger is not only the war in Ukraine, but the war in the Middle East. And I think this is totally underestimated. The war in Ukraine has caused a huge amount of damage to Europe, and Bulgaria is part of Europe. If you look at the sanctions placed on Russia have backfired badly. Russia is growing at over 3%. And if you look at Germany, by the end of this year, 0.2%. France, 0.7%. Italy, 0.7%. Bulgaria is looking pretty good, 2.7%. Bulgaria is actually doing pretty well. But the rest of Europe is doing very badly. And I'm just double checking here. Russia, it looks like Russia is going to be projected to grow at, about 3.2%.
Is it real? Is it real, this number?
It's coming from the IMF.
Okay.
So I'm using the IMF methodology. It's the same for Bulgaria, the same for Germany, Italy, France. It's all the same method. Yeah. So if you use the IMF method, you've come out with a lot stronger growth in Russia. So this makes sense to me because the sanctions have backfired.
Yeah.
The sanctions have created huge collateral damage in Europe, very costly in Europe. And the other thing I might add, in addition to the sanctions backfiring, is the green transition. The green transition is very costly. There's no such thing as a green free lunch. This is a big risk that's not calculated in Bulgaria. The green transition is going to be hugely costly for Bulgaria. I mean, Bulgaria right now gets about 50% of its electric power from coal, and they want to eliminate coal. So it'll be like Germany. It will just collapse as they go into the green transition. Right now, Bulgaria is exporting electric power. That's going to stop.
Who want to stop this?
Well, it's the political class. It's the politicians in Bulgaria who have no legitimacy. That's one group. And also, you have to remember, Bulgaria is a vassal state. It takes its orders from where? Brussels. Brussels has told you to shut the coal mines down.
Yeah.
And the Bulgarian politicians agreed because they got bribed. If they shut the coal mines, they're going to get what, 1.2 billion euros or something.
Yeah.
So that's what's normally called a bribe.
This is a green communism. I call it this green communism. Why it's happening to me one more time again?
That's a good phrase. I'm going to, if you'll give me permission, Martin, I'm going to use that. Green communism.
Of course, Professor.
Yeah.
You understand, we are between two wars, Ukraine and Middle East. What will be happen? Maybe in Middle East we'll erase the problem and we will have problem with the gas prices.
Well, yes, both war. I've already indicated that the Ukrainian war has been hugely costly for Europe and Bulgaria. the sanctions have completely backfired and imposed enormous costs. Now moving to the Middle East, this is extremely dangerous. Israel is extremely dangerous because they're actually talking about attacking Iran and attacking the oil facilities in Iran. Now, Iran produces about 2% of the world's oil. Most of it they sell to China. So if their oil facilities were hit, it would cause a problem. And oil prices, by the way, have gone up. They were about $70 a barrel last week. Now they're about $76 a barrel today on October 7th, 2024. So that would cause a problem. But the real problem is the Strait of Hormuz. If Israel would attack directly Iran would shut the strait. And 20% of all the oil in the world comes through the strait. It comes from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, all the Gulf states. All that oil goes through the strait. But Iran could easily shut it down. And that would be catastrophic. Catastrophic.
For whom?
So this is what's going on, Martin, in the Middle East is the United States is supporting Israel. So the U.S. is financing that war. Of course, the U.S. is financing most of the war in Ukraine is financed by the United States. So if the U.S. would stop funding those wars, the wars would stop. We'd have a peace agreement. But that's not what's going on. So realistically, we have to look at the thing realistically. The U.S. is financing the war in the Middle East. Israel's getting more aggressive every day, going up the escalation ladder, more and more dangerous, up. And if they go into this attack mode on Iran, which they threaten to do, we've got real problems.
Maybe United States can stop this process politically.
Well, they theoretically they could, because if you look at wars, you have to look at the economics and the finance. Where's the money coming from? And the money's coming all from the United States. If the money was cut off, that would be there would be a peace agreement in Ukraine. There would be a peace agreement in the Middle East. That's not happening, particularly in the Middle East, because the Israeli lobby in the United States runs a show.
That will be catastrophic for the United States if the prices
also the United States. It'll be more catastrophic for Europe because you're closer to it than we are in the United States. But it'll be catastrophic for everybody. If the Strait of Hormuz is shut and 20% of the oil production in the world is shut, it will be catastrophic for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Will it be catastrophic for us when Bulgarian politicians close the Maritsa's mines? You know Maritsa mines, coal mines.
I know it very well. And it will be a big problem. I'm not saying it will be catastrophic, but it'll be this is part of the green transition thing that I was talking about, because 48% of the electric power in Bulgaria is produced by coal right now.
Yeah, we know.
And they want to shut these mines and get rid of them. Thousands of jobs will be lost. Number one, for the people working in the mines, it will be catastrophic for them. That's for sure. Because all this EU money coming, believe me, isn't going to go into the pockets of the people working in the mines who lose their jobs. So it will be, it's a typical EU operation that will impose enormous cost on the vassal state of Bulgaria. And remember, you said green communism. I would say there's no such thing as a free green lunch.
No such a thing as a free green lunch.
Yes.
Yeah, the green politics are the cheese in the trap, yeah?
The green transition is not been calculated by anyone in Bulgaria and most people in Europe. And when you want to see what happens with it, look at Germany. Germany is in a state of complete collapse, by the way. Mm-hmm. Complete collapse. Electric prices have gone through the roof in Germany because they've shut down the nuke plants and they've eliminated coal, and they've gone to wind and solar, but the wind doesn't blow all the time and the sun doesn't shine all the time. So they have a big problem. Plus the fact that the Nord Stream pipeline blew up, and there are various, shall we say, theories that with a lot of evidence that the Ukrainians did that.
What do you think? We must recover the connection with Russia, to recover the Nord Stream, to recover the gas market with Russia?
I think, unfortunately, to some extent, we've crossed that bridge. You can't rebuild quickly the Nord Stream, and I don't think that's going to happen. What you could do, and what you should do, is get rid of all the sanctions against Russia. That the key is getting rid of the sanctions against Russia.
I think in Bulgaria this is heretic thoughts.
Might be a heretical thought, but it's my thought. And I have the proof because I follow sanctions all over the world. Sanctions are a complete disaster every place. They never solve any problem. They create problems. They create huge collateral damage. And they're very popular with politicians. But we all know politicians are stupid.
Did you say this to Biden?
Yes. You know what he does. Every day he puts a new sanction on somebody.
Yeah.
He's putting more and more sanctions, not only on Russia, but Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and anyone the United States doesn't like, they put a sanction on. This is turning sanctions on, by the way, on China, because tariffs and protectionism, that's the same thing as sanctions.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And think of it this way. Think in simple terms. If trade between, let's say, a Bulgarian buyer and a Russian seller, if the Bulgarian and Russian agree on that sale, it must be good for the Bulgarian and good for the Russian. Otherwise, they wouldn't agree. And now we have a politician getting between the Bulgarian and between the Russian and saying, no, you can't do that. That's against the law. You're sanctioned. Or they put a tariff in between, or maybe a quota. So this is a very bad thing that's going on internationally. And of course, who pays the cost? The Bulgarians.
Not only the Bulgarians, all Europeans.
Oh, all the Europeans, all the Americans, everyone is paying the cost. But since you're emitting this broadcast from Sofia, Bulgaria, let's talk to the Bulgarians. Why do the Bulgarians? Why can't they stand the politicians in Bulgaria? Why don't they trust them? Why do they know they're corrupt? Because of exactly what we're talking about. The general people in Bulgaria are not stupid. They know what's going on. And by the way, they know I'm right.
Yeah, but they will elect the same people once again.
That is why I think you have to change the Constitution and go from indirect democracy to direct democracy, where the Bulgarians vote directly on big things.
Съединените щати също са в предизборна борба. Какво е вашето кратко мнение за икономическите политики на двамата кандидати, Тръмп и Харис?
Both bad. The only thing that's interesting, you have to remember, I'm independent. I'm not a partisan. I'm not a member of any political party. So, and that's been the case for a long time. So the question is, objectively, what's going on? Who's going to win the election? That's what people want to know and want to calculate. Now, if you look at the polling data, these polls, they're not very accurate. And that's why I look at what's called the prediction markets. And there's something called poly market. It's the biggest prediction market in the world. And right now, I just looked a half an hour ago because I thought maybe you'd ask me this question. So on October 7th, about midday in East Coast in Baltimore, Trump overall, the prediction markets, and that's where people are betting. People put their own money. People like you and me, Martin, they're betting who's going to win. Yeah. And Trump is now ahead of Harris overall, 54.2%. Harris, 45.2%. And if you look at this, the key state is Pennsylvania, and Trump is leading in the prediction market 56% to 44% with Harris. So that, as of today, that is objectively what is happening. If you look at the polling data tends to be inaccurate and subjective. And one reason why, if the pollster telephones someone and that person answers and they say, well, who are you going to vote for? That person will tend to be biased, and they'll tend to tell the pollster what they think the pollster wants to hear. And they'll be afraid to say Trump. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So yeah. There's a bias that gets into it. That's why I always look, and I always have, by the way, looked at the prediction markets, because I'm an economist. I want to look at a market where people have skin in the game to see what those people are betting on. Mm-hmm. And that, I just told you the numbers. I don't have to repeat them. So
I want to tell you the numbers in Bulgaria. 45 Harris, 48 Harris, and 42 Trump. This is from our televisions. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's because it's biased. It's like that in the most of the polls in the United States are just like the Bulgarian ones.
Yeah.
And the reason why, in this case, my conjecture is that the people who are being asked who they're going to vote for, and they're not betting on it with their own money or anything like that, they want to say what the television station wants them to say, yeah. which is Harris. They're for Harris. They're not for Trump. Mm-hmm. So look at the prediction markets. They're in real time. They're easy to follow. And poly markets is the big one. Go to poly markets, and you'll see minute by minute, hour by hour, every change.
Are you afraid from Trump or Harris?
Oh, I told you. I think the policies that they embrace, both of them are bad.
Yeah, but
I'm highly critical, and the main thing is that they're thinking in the wrong way. Remember, I was President Reagan's advisor in the White House in the 1980s. Now, what was Reagan and Reaganomics? He was for free markets, less government regulation, less politicians having their hands involved in it, mm-hmm. less political activity. Now, Trump and Harris both want more political action, more decisions made in Washington, more protectionism.
And that is communism too.
Yes, it's a form. It's a form. Shall we say, it's kind of communism light.
Light. Communism light. It's very good.
Yeah. So what they want to do, by the way, fundamentally is move, and this is very important. They're copying the Communist Party in China. They're copying China. That's what they do in China. The Politburo decides all the major decisions, where the investment's going, what the tariffs are, this, that, and the other thing. And the West, Europe, as well as the United States, as well as the United Kingdom, they're basically copying the industrial policy that Xi has imposed in China. By the way, very different from what Deng was proposing. Deng was like Reagan. In 1979, his famous December speech, Deng Xiaoping, he's the greatest free market person in the history of man. The huge growth they had in China after the free market reforms, that was all because of Deng. And remember, they had free market economics with, as they said, communist characteristics, but that was kind of communism light.
Long live Deng Xiaoping.
Oh, yeah. Deng Xiaoping was maybe the greatest free market economist of all time is Adam Smith. Mm-hmm. But the greatest practitioner is Deng. Those were the greatest reforms in the history of man, the greatest free market reforms. And then Xi has come, and Xi has turned that around and gone back to the old communist way. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're following in the United States, officially, by the way. Mm-hmm. This isn't my theory. This has been issued by the Commerce Department in the United States. What this industrial policy is. It's exactly what they do in China.
Okay, last thing. Say something for courage for our people, for our voters.
I think I would say most people are not going to vote in Bulgaria. I would say everyone should vote and go to the vote and throw the rascals out. All the incumbents, get rid of them.
You're a very brave man. Here is another situation. Thank you, Professor Hake.
Well,
thank you very much.
It's great to be with you, Martin, in your new studio. I think it's terrific.
It's a big investment. I'm a capitalist, you understand. I must think like a capitalist.
Actually, not only you're a capitalist, but you're an entrepreneur. You have the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, but I'm a capitalist and entrepreneur in communistic state, I think, in European Union.
Well, yeah, that's right. But I think hopefully the tail will wag the dog and you'll win.
Thank you very much, Professor. Be healthy.
Same to you.
Thank you very much one more time. Bye.
Have a good day.